Conservative new media viewers, J-Lin fans around the world, Charlotte Hornets fans around the world, what's up? It's me, PFV, Paul F. Villarreal, the NBA expert. We're here to discuss Charlotte's 96-80 victory today in game number 3 of the first round of the 2016 NBA playoffs. With the victory, Charlotte now trails in the best-of-7 series 2-1. So each team has won the 3 games that have taken place on their home court. Miami had the first 2 at home. They won them both. Charlotte had today's game in Charlotte, and they were able to win that one. What happened in the game? Let's do a quick overview of what took place in this game, why Charlotte won, and how Jeremy did. Charlotte had a huge run in the third quarter of this game. They went on something like a 22-4 run, so plus 18 during that stretch of the game, and that pretty much was the margin of victory here. They won by 16, and that run was a plus 18. It went, we'll discuss it more, but it went over, I don't know, maybe about 7 minutes of game time, from about 7 minutes left in the third all the way to the end of the third. It was just a monstrous run, and then it actually continued into the fourth quarter as well. But that was really the turning point of this game. Charlotte led by 5 points at half, but then they were able to stretch it out there in the third quarter and then early into the fourth. How did Jeremy do? Jeremy was outstanding in this game. He was the leading scorer for the Hornets, and he was the second leading scorer of the game. 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He played 26 minutes, shot 7 of 16 from the field, including 2 of 3 from three-point range, 2 of 3 free throws made, 1 steal, no block shots, no turnovers, 3 personal fouls, and his plus-minus was a plus 17. That was just incredible. And he was one of the 5 players that was on the court for most of that big run in the third and also into the fourth quarter. So that's kind of what happened in a nutshell. That's the quick version if you're not able to watch more of this video. Now we're going to talk more about some of the strategy involved in this, as well as we'll do a little bit of quarter by quarter for Jeremy's kind of highlight moments. Another reason why Charlotte won this game was because their bench outscored Miami's bench 34-13. So they had a 21-point advantage in bench points, which is huge. What happened is a lot of what you see in series or even during the regular season, which is sometimes the bench players play better at home than they do on the road. In this instance, however, the 2 bench players who scored the most for the Hornets were Jeremy himself and Cody Zeller. Cody's actually been starting most of the recent, for like the second half of the season he started. So he's kind of not truly a bench player, and Jeremy's good enough to be a starter. I mean, so he can compete. He just hasn't really had the opportunity, or didn't completely have it going, I don't think, in the first 2 games. But he was able to do better today. But I don't know if it was just so much of a home and road type of thing, although that is something that is noticed often when it comes to NBA games in terms of bench players and how they perform. What this game was about was about adjustments. Steve Clifford had a decision to make about what lineup he was going to use with Nick Batum being out for the game and likely out for the series, according to reports, with a sprained foot. Was he going to go small, and that would mean starting J-Lin at shooting guard, or was he going to go bigger and try to match up, kind of just put some more size against Miami? Clifford made the decision to go bigger. And so what he did was he started Marvin Williams at the small forward position in place of Batum, and then he started Frank Kaminsky at the power forward position. The decision was going to be, do you start Frank Kaminsky at power forward, or do you start Jeremy Lin at shooting guard and then Courtney Lee at small forward, Marvin Williams at his normal power forward spot? That was the choice. Clifford decided to go big. It didn't look good early. In the first quarter of this game, Frank Kaminsky was matched up with Luol Deng, and Miami plays a smaller lineup themselves since Chris Bosh got hurt, like a couple months ago, or actually suffered a relapse with his blood clot issue. It wasn't really an injury, so to speak. Luol Deng had 12 points in the first quarter, and they were all on three-pointers. And at least a couple of them were Frank Kaminsky didn't get and close out against Deng quickly enough. So early on, it didn't look good. Looked like Clifford might have made a mistake, and that the lineup and the chess match between the two coaches was going to favor Miami again. But in the second half, and particularly during that 22-4 run, Kaminsky came up huge, came up really big. So bench scoring, an adjustment in the lineup with Charlotte going bigger to compete with Miami's lineup. The reason why they wanted to go bigger was they wanted to match up with Dwayne Wade and Joe Johnson. Those two are the small forward and shooting guard for Miami. They're both very bulky, strong guys for their position. You need to have size to defend them. Although I will say that Jeremy Lin did a good job defending Dwayne Wade in this game when he was in. So credit to Jeremy for that. But that's the thinking. That was the concept here. So those two things happened. The other thing that happened was Frank Kaminsky played big and Marvin Williams played big. Those two guys are going to need to produce if Charlotte's going to have a chance to stay in this series and win this series. Marvin Williams had a horrible first two games of this series. He was something like 1 for 17 shooting or something like that. He was much better today, and so was Frank Kaminsky. Frank Kaminsky, as I'll talk about in the quarter by quarter, just like I said, he exploded in the third quarter. And if you're going big and you're guarding a smaller player like Luol Deng, okay, you're going to have the quickness disadvantage. So it's going to be harder to get to him and close out on jump shots. He might be able to drive around you, but you're going to have the advantage in size, meaning if you post up when you're on offense, that player, Luol Deng, should be too small to guard you. So what happened in the second half was Kaminsky was getting post-ups against Deng, against Justice, Winslow. They're not big enough to guard him. And finally, Frank kind of settled in a little bit, and he started getting baskets. Now, look, to be fair to Frank, he's a rookie. This is all new to him. This is his first playoffs. But they need him. With Nick Batum out, they really need him. And it was just good to see for him and just feel good for him that he was able to come through today. Marvin Williams, 14 rebounds in this game to go with 12 points. The only player who had more rebounds than him in this game was Hassan Whiteside, who is Miami's center. So Marvin was excellent today, and he shot 5 of 9 from the field. So if Frank Kaminsky and Marvin Williams can play like this for the rest of the series or something like this, this is going to be a long series, and Charlotte probably is going to have an opportunity to win. The key for Charlotte now, obviously, they've got to win game number 4. They've got to figure out a way to win a game in Miami. The first 2 games, Miami was just shooting the ball like there was no defense. It was too easy. But Charlotte put the clamps on them today on defense. That's the 4th key to this game. Charlotte's defense really picked up, And honestly, Miami just started missing shots that they were hitting in the first two games. You can't sustain that. That was never going to be a sustainable attack for Miami. They just hit everything. In the first two games, they shot 58% from the field in both games. And in game number 2, in the first half, they shot 74% from the field. You can't, that's just never going to hold up. Well, today, they shot 34% from the game. They came back down to earth, and Charlotte just rolled. And they were able to contain them, and they were able to contain their three-point shooting. They held them to just 32%, which, again, I mean, coming into this series, Charlotte was assumed to have the significant advantage in three-point shooting. But because of how Miami's playing and because of the small ball and the matchup, it hasn't been that way. That's because Miami wants to shoot more threes, and Miami's really good at taking away your ability to shoot threes. So it's actually been Miami hitting more field goals from three-point range. And I said in the last two videos, if Miami hit more three-pointers than Charlotte did in the game, it would be tough for Charlotte to win. Well, that wasn't the case today. Miami made 7, Charlotte only made 5, and Charlotte won by 16 points. That's because the rest of the defense and their overall defense was good, and Charlotte got into the paint more. So those are kind of the 4 things that I think kind of changed things around today. Charlotte's bench was much better than Miami's bench. Going to the big lineup worked. Marvin Williams and Frank Kaminsky came through big, and Charlotte's defense came through big. So now Charlotte's got a formula now. The other thing is Miami they only played 6 guys in this, they only played 7 guys really in this game. Now in the first 2 games they were playing 8 guys, with Amari Stoudemire being the 8th. This game today they only played 7 guys. You can't do that. I mean, you can do it, but if you want to play, like in the playoffs, the timeouts are longer. There's more rest. There's more timeouts for TV and stuff. So you get more rest within the game than you do during the regular season. You also tend to get more rest between games because they're spread out a little bit more. Still, Miami wants to play at a fast pace because they're playing small. They get up and down the court and score points. If you're playing at that type of pace, you only play 7 guys, that could get a little difficult. And there were times in this game when Miami did look tired. They did look tired. Now, I think some part of why they looked tired was because they were losing pretty considerably, and you get a little bit more deflated. But still, if that continues, then that might give Charlotte a little bit of an advantage. Although Charlotte themselves only played 7 guys themselves. But man, you get more energy when you're winning. Still, I thought that 2 of Miami's 7 guys are rookies, so we're not surprised if they struggle on the road. I just think that as this series goes along, even though they're missing Nick Batum, I think the depth could tilt a little bit more in Charlotte's favor in terms of how many guys are you playing and who are they? Are they rookies and so forth? That could wear them down a little bit more. Jason Richardson, Justice Winslow are both rookies, and they're playing significant minutes for the Heat. So, all told, this was a fantastic game for Charlotte. It didn't look great early. Miami came out, they were hitting shots, Luol Deng with the 12 points in the first quarter. It looked like it was going to be the same thing as game number 1 and game number 2. But then Miami slowed down considerably in the second quarter. Charlotte clamped down the defense. The Heat only scored 16 points in the second quarter, and then the third quarter happened, and the dam walls broke, and the flood began for Charlotte. So now we've got a totally different thing. You've got a totally different mentality for Charlotte. They know they can win. They know they can compete. They know Miami's not going to shoot 60% every single game and from three-point range. They found something that worked with the bigger lineup. Jeremy Lin's coming through big, and he's giving you scoring punch off the bench. Al Jefferson played well as a starter, and so forth. Things look really, really good. Let's go over the statistics quickly for the individuals, and then let's do the quarter by quarter. Miami was led by Luol Deng, 19 points, 8 rebounds. He had an excellent game, but he wore down as the game went on. As I said, 12 points in the first quarter and then 7 points in the other 3 quarters. Dwayne Wade, 17 points, 7 rebounds. Hassan Whiteside, 13 points, 18 rebounds. He had some foul trouble in this game. He got 5 fouls, and he got 2 fouls relatively early. Jeremy actually got the 3rd foul on Whiteside, I think in the 3rd quarter. That was a good moment for the Hornets and Jeremy. Goran Dragic, 11.7 rebounds, 4 assists. Those are all the double-figure scores. Nobody on the bench had more than 4 points. As we talked about before, I mean, look, Miami's a very good team. They are good, and they are good in small ball style, but they're fragile. They are relying heavily on 2 rookies off the bench, and Hassan Whiteside he's still working on, I don't know, whatever his focus or his maturity, whatever you want to call it. If you have to rely on Whiteside, that can be dangerous. You never know when he's going to kind of lose focus or he's going to pick up fouls, and they have to have him against Charlotte because Charlotte they have Kemba, they have Jeremy, and those guys are going to get to the basket. If you don't have Whiteside back there protecting the basket, Charlotte is going to kill you on drives because nobody else on Miami can protect the rim. Amari's too old and too broken down to protect the rim like he used to be able to really well, but he can't do it anymore. So every time Whiteside steps out of this game, attack for Charlotte, and that's what they're doing, and they're doing it very intelligently. For the Hornets, Kemba Walker, 17 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists. Kemba didn't shoot well, but he played well, and he played hard. And his intensity helped the team and helped feed the crowd's intensity. Frank Kaminsky, 15 points, 6 rebounds. Just really key that he played so efficiently today. Al Jefferson, 10 points, 8 rebounds. As I didn't mention, Al started. That was the other change to the starting lineup. Frank Kaminsky started at power forward, and Al Jefferson started at center. The reason why Al Jefferson started was because they wanted to put pressure on Hassan Whiteside. Al is almost unguardable one-on-one in the low post. And so the goal here is go to Al and try to get Whiteside into foul trouble and get him frustrated. It worked okay. Al played well, so it's good. I mean, Al has more post-up moves than Cody Zeller does. That's why Al was playing to go against Whiteside. Marvin Williams, 12 points, 14 rebounds. Just fantastic for him. As mentioned before, Jeremy Lin, 18 points off the bench. Cody Zeller, 12 points, 8 rebounds off the bench. He was big. And now in the rotation as well with Batum hurting, Spencer Hawes, 2 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist. Look, Spencer helps space the floor. He can hit threes, and he's legitimately about 7 foot. So he's certainly part of the lineup, and particularly the big lineup that Charlotte is going with now. Okay, let's do some quarter by quarter. Look, I forgot to do the woo. Woo! What's so great about this win is it's durable. This can be replicated. Miami's not going to shoot so poorly every single game, but Charlotte isn't as bad as they looked in the first 2 games either. Now they have confidence. Marvin Williams woke up. Frank Kaminsky woke up. Jeremy Lin found his groove. Charlotte, the big lineup is the key. The big lineup can work, and it can wear down the smaller Miami lineup, and that's what's so exciting. This can be duplicated. Look, Charlotte didn't even shoot the ball that great today, and they particularly didn't shoot well from 3-point range. Charlotte shot 39% in this game. That's That's not even good. They definitely shot better in the first 2 games. I'm virtually certain of that. And they only shot 28% from 3. So this was not Charlotte's best game. It wasn't. They can play better than this on offense. It might have been their best game on defense, but they're capable of that. And Charlotte was top 10 in defense this year, and they were top 10 in offense, or they were certainly right on the right there. If they weren't, they were like top 11. They can do this. They just need to be focused. And honestly, they needed some confidence. They needed some belief. And winning this game and winning it the way that they did it, and with the people contributing who did contribute, that's going to give them the belief. Now they saw they can do it. And this isn't some 100-foot-tall, invulnerable robot that they're facing that's going to make every shot that's open. So we've got a much different thing now. Much different. And I definitely look for Charlotte to come out strong in Game 4 because they should be and they will be fired up. Okay, middle of the first, Jeremy came in. The score at that point in time was 18-13 for Miami. At this time, Luol Deng was already rolling. And I think that Coach Clifford wasn't feeling so certain about starting Frank Kaminsky, and that's why Jeremy came in relatively quickly with 6 minutes and 1 second left when he did come in. Then immediately after Jeremy came into the game, Miami went to an ISO post-up with Dwayne Wade, meaning they're going to attack Jeremy with Dwayne Wade as much as they can. And they did that, and Jeremy fouled him and is like, oh, no. This is almost like Jeremy when he was guarding Chris Middleton of the Bucks, where he got like 3 fouls in 2 minutes. It's like, oh, boy. But it didn't happen. In fact, Jeremy only had 1 other foul the entire game. What Miami wants to do, in addition to playing small and getting up and down the court, is they want to isolate, particularly with post-ups, but also on drives. They look for mismatches to isolate as much as they can. Luol Deng against Frank Kaminsky. Luol's quicker. He's faster. He's more athletic. So they'll go to that, and they'll give the ball to Luol and go at him, go at him, go at him. They did the same thing with Dwayne Wade when Jeremy was on him, and they were doing the same thing with Joe Johnson when he was being guarded by, like, Courtney Lee, who's significantly smaller than Joe Johnson in terms of bulk. That's how Miami plays, and it's effective, and it's particularly effective in the playoffs. When guys can play more minutes, they do get to rest more in the games. The game slows down, and it's just pound, pound, pound. That's the chess match here. And it is an advantage for Miami, although Charlotte can counter it better when they go bigger. I'm not saying that Jeremy shouldn't start or anything, but I'm just saying from a defensive perspective, you need height and bulk against Wade and Joe Johnson, or you're going to have problems. So I understand what Cliff did, and this is what Miami's going to try to do. They're going to look for the mismatches. Miami executes well. They're disciplined. So they will find the mismatch, and they will go after it over and over and over again. That's what Deng did to Kaminsky, and that's what Wade did as soon as Jeremy came into the game to replace Courtney Lee. Okay. Then Jeremy he came in firing. He got a three-pointer off the dribble, took a little hop jump into it from about 25 degrees left of the top of the arc. That made the score 21-18 for Miami. What Jeremy did great in the first half of this game was he kept Charlotte close, and then he helped them start getting the lead. Like early on, they were reeling because of Miami's fast start. Jeremy kept the game close in the first quarter. He was scoring. He was getting it done. That was key, because without that, there is no comeback. There is no super win, because Miami would have rolled, and Jeremy kept them close. Okay, then he almost had a turnover. He was just going to make a pass, but it didn't turn out to be a turnover, which was great. Moving on to late in the first, Jeremy missed a shot. I did not see it. I didn't get to see it. Then Jeremy had a nice defensive sequence against Wade. I think he forced him into a miss or forced him to pass the ball away when Wade wanted to do another isolation play. Then Jeremy had he drove down the right side of the lane, scored the layup, and the free throw was awarded to him. He made that free throw. That cut the lead 26-23 for Miami. At that point in the game, I believe Whiteside was sitting down. Yeah, he was. He had 2 personal fouls. He had to sit. As I mentioned, Whiteside's out. Charlotte's going to the basket. They're going to the rim. In fact, there's one statistic that I didn't mention that I need to mention. Let me mention it now among all the other statistics that I said. That is points in the paint. We said coming into this series, Miami owns points in the paint. They're the best in the league at getting points in the paint, and they're very good at keeping you from points in the paint. Well, the tally today, points in the paint, Miami 28, Charlotte 52. Huge, massive, lopsided statistic. The other thing that I should say was statistic is that Miami won offensive rebounds. 12 rebounds offensively for them, 9 for Charlotte. But it was close. It wasn't a blowout. But probably the most telling statistic in this game of everything could be the points in the paint. That meant Charlotte attacked and attacked and attacked. And they got post-ups and they got to the basket. And Jeremy had a lot to do with that, both in scoring and in passing. If Charlotte wins the points in the paint, they have a great chance to win this series, particularly if they're winning by the margin that they did today, in a plus 24, which honestly probably won't happen again, but it doesn't need to. So that was huge. Like I said, I mean, Jeremy was extremely aggressive in this game in a good way. And look, sometimes, he's not going to get the foul calls that he should get sometimes. So sometimes it's going to be a turnover or a big miss, and that's because he expects that he's going to get a foul call. So you have to live with some of that. Look, he had no turnovers today. So no turnovers. He had a couple misses where he expected a foul, but you want him to be aggressive. And he was really aggressive today, and that's one of the reasons why they won points in the paint so well. It's not just Jeremy scoring, it's Jeremy dishing to like a Marvin Williams dunk, which, is, of course, is a point in the paint. Okay? So then he had an assist opportunity that was not converted. Then he had a nice drive against Amari Stoudemire where he cut from the right, the right corner of the free throw line, went down the lane and went to the left-handed reverse against Amari, scored that. That made the score 28-27 to Miami, and I put Charlotte gaining momentum now. A lot of this had to do with Jeremy. Jeremy was aggressive, and he was getting to the basket and scoring and getting fouls. End of the first quarter, 29-28 for Charlotte. As I mentioned on Twitter at halftime, this is the first time in the series so far in which Miami didn't have a 40-point first quarter or second quarter. In Game 1, it was the first quarter. They scored 41 points. In Game 2, they scored 42 points in the second quarter. Tonight, their biggest quarter would be the first quarter. They got 28 points there, and they weren't going to get any 40-point quarters or anything even close to that, certainly not the rest of the way after the first quarter. Going into the second quarter, the lineup, Jeremy Lin, Courtney Lee, Marvin Williams, Cody Zeller, I think Al Jefferson. I wrote down the wrong name. Sorry about that. Jeremy missed his second shot of the game. He wanted to get a foul. It was a layup try. They didn't call the foul. Again, we just have to live with that. I hope Jeremy gets more calls. I said on Twitter, I think he should be getting more calls in this series. We know it. We know it with the 2 flagrant video. I hope it gets more calls. I mean, they're not going to call everything, particularly in the playoffs. But he should be getting a little bit, at least somewhat more calls. That's my own personal feeling. Okay. Charlotte then took the lead 31-28. Then after that, Jeremy had the assist to Marvin Williams for the baseline dunk. This was a great play by both men. Jeremy drove down the right side of the basket. He did the stop pivot move. I believe he was double teamed then. Marvin Williams cut from the right baseline to the basket. Jeremy saw him, just handed the ball off to him. Big time dunk and finish for Marvin. And I think that helped Marvin get going. Because it's like, okay, finally the ball went through the basket and I'm not shooting 1 for 17 anymore. I mean, that's a dunk or a layup can really get a guy feeling good about their shooting. So that was a big play, and Jeremy was right in the middle of it. Then Jeremy had his third miss of the game. He was clearly trying to get fouled, and I put he should have been given the foul on a layup try. What Jeremy needs to do, if he's not going to get foul calls, and I'm not saying he shouldn't. Anybody who's followed the NBA for a long time, you know that sometimes they just don't call fouls. It can be of a certain player. It can be in the playoffs. It can be a certain referee group just doesn't call many fouls. So what Jeremy has to be able to do is, instead of looking for the foul, because this was a situation where he just didn't have a good angle. Like, he kind of went for the foul because he just didn't have a good angle to shoot. This is where you want to shoot floaters. Instead of coming underhand, shoot overhand. Don't expect the foul. Go up for the shot and have the little array of floaters and trick shots that you can go to, so that if you don't have an angle, you can make an angle with your shot, basically. Look, and he's fine. I mean, he knows what he's doing. He practices floaters all the time, so it's not like I'm telling him anything here, but that's something that's an adjustment that you can make. Okay. Then, at this point in time, Jeremy was going against Jason Richardson. Jason Richardson's an excellent defender, and he's one of these defenders that will kind of harass Jeremy up the whole court. And so you'll see, like, he's all over Jeremy. And Jeremy, obviously, he dribbles well, but he isn't like an elite dribbler. So there's times where sometimes these guys that are ball hawks, like Jason Richardson, like Avery Bradley, they'll bug him a little bit. And the way you just deal with that is, get the ball across half court and then just pass it off and move in the offense. And Jeremy was doing that well tonight. Like I said, 0 turnovers. So he did it. But that's going to happen in this series because Jason Richardson is just a really serious defender on the ball. Okay. Then he had his 4th miss of the game. This was an off-the-dribble 3-point attempt from the top of the arc. And I think it was a little bit long and hit off the back of the rim. Okay. Then took a timeout, 33-32 Charlotte. So Charlotte had completed the comeback. They had taken the lead, and now this was kind of the point in the game where it's still, we're in a fight here. This isn't like what was going to happen later in the game. This is still like, okay, this is back and forth. You got to execute well, and you got to play smart. All right. Coming out of the timeout, Jeremy, again, he almost had a turnover. This was where Jason Richardson was putting really difficult pressure when Jeremy was dribbling, but no turnover. Then he had his 4th score of the game, pick and roll with maybe Cody Zeller on the turned into a layup on the right side. Again, no Hassan Whiteside, which meant if you beat your man, you're going to get almost certainly a free layup. That's because Amari's, like I said, Amari's not the defender he used to be, and Miami's playing small, which means there's not a lot of height. There's not a lot of shot blocking out there. Amari is the only shot blocker, and he's not the shot blocker that he used to be just because of his age and his injuries. So if Whiteside comes off the court, Miami has no shot blocking. And, again, Jeremy's aware of that and was getting to the rim. Okay. So that made the score 35-32, and then Jeremy had another reverse on the left side, and actually this was the one against Amari, so the one earlier must have been against, I guess it was against Whiteside or somebody else. This was his second reverse of the game and his fifth score of the game. I believe that put Charlotte up, I think 37 to like 34, something like that. I did not write down. 37 to 32, excuse me. Then Jeremy once again drove to the basket and he was fouled. So 2 free throws, missed the first one, made the second. Then I wrote down Linsanity takeover now. And mentioning Linsanity, Darren Ravel, who's the ESPN business reporter, just reported about 30 minutes before I made this video that Jeremy Lin was awarded the trademark to Linsanity. After seeking it for the last 4 years, he was finally awarded it about 2 months ago. I didn't know that. Congratulations to Jeremy and to his legal team, because he deserves it. So that means that people can't, I think people can still say it, but you can't make T-shirts with Linsanity on it and sell it, because unless you give a cut to Jeremy Lin or unless Jeremy Lin approves it. I think that's basically how it works. I have to ask my brother, who was a lawyer, JDV, about that. It's something along those lines. I should know, but I forget. So that's good to know. But this was a true Linsanity takeover. And because now was a point in time, attack, score, fouled. And then I wrote on Twitter, it said Jeremy Lin starting to take over this game. And at this point in the game, Jeremy had, this was the middle of the second quarter, he had 13 points. Charlotte was up 38-32. Jeremy is the leading scorer in the game, and it looks like he's going to score in every possession. They can't stop him. Amari's not guarding the rim, etc. Then, soon after that, Jeremy had his fifth miss of the game. He went for a layup, again attacking the rim. He went for a layup on the left-hand side. He just missed it. The shot was slightly affected by Jason Richardson, so that was good. And then I wrote the note, Lin knows he can attack rim at will with no Whiteside. Soon after that, Kemba came back in. The lineup was now Kemba, Jeremy, Courtney, Cody Zeller, Spencer Hawes. And I put the Kemba is dribbling the ball. So Kemba's bringing up the ball. And what was good with this was this took a little bit of the pressure off of Jeremy to dribble. Again, you have Jason Richards super ball hawking. Jeremy scoring a lot. Give him a break. Let Kemba handle the ball. And that's what Clifford did there. And I thought it was a good decision. Just kind of let Jeremy rest a little bit. At this point in time now, Jeremy was back to guarding Dwayne Wade, and that was because Dwayne Wade had come back into the game. No, and then I corrected that. Jeremy, by position, would normally be guarding Dwayne Wade. In other words, Dwayne Wade's the shooting guard, and Jeremy was now playing shooting guard. But what they did was they put Courtney Lee on Dwayne Wade, and they had Jeremy guarding Justice Winslow. That's a smart adjustment by Coach Clifford. As we said, don't let Miami isolate Wade against Jeremy, because Wade's got about 20 pounds on Jeremy, 25 pounds. And he's stronger, and he's more explosive than Jeremy is. Okay? In other words, one of the things that's so difficult to guard about Dwayne Wade is he can get separation and elevate on his shot better than most players can, which means it's very difficult to actually challenge his jump shot when he does like post-ups. Because of the bulk and because of the jumping ability, he can just kind of shoot over you and you can't do anything. That's one of the things that makes it so hard for Jeremy. Because Jeremy's strong. I mean, Wade is stronger, or he's bulkier, but Jeremy's plenty strong. It's the ability to kind of get up and over and fade away and all this stuff that makes it harder. So having a little bit more size, a little bit more length in somebody like Courtney Lee, that helps, and that makes sense. And Jeremy's strong enough to guard Justice Winslow, because Winslow's big, but he's a rookie. He doesn't have that kind of grown-up strength yet.
So I think Clifford made a good decision there, and that's part of the chess game. How can we protect from these mismatches during the game? Like I said, this is going to be like this the whole series. So it's going to be tough for Charlotte to win this series because Batum's out. But they can win it. But in order to win it, they've got to succeed on these little chess matches, these individual chess moves on the chessboard one by one. And it's going to happen every single game. And like I said, Miami is smart. They are disciplined. They will find a mismatch if you don't cover it up. Okay? Now, so we continued on. Jeremy was fouled by Dwayne Wade on the perimeter. No shots. That's still middle of the second, going late into the second. Jeremy fell down on a drive. He was driving on the left side of the court. Fortunately, if you fall down and then get up, that's a travel. Fortunately, Jeremy was smart enough to kick the ball out to Al Jefferson before he got a travel. That was good. Then Wade was able to score over Lin in the manner I was talking about before, kind of up and over. Then I made the note that says Jeremy should be getting more foul calls because he was getting hit and he wasn't getting fouled calls, unfortunately. Jeremy came out of the game with 2 minutes and 44 seconds left in the second quarter. At that point in time, Charlotte had the lead 44-42. So when Jeremy came in, Charlotte was down by, 5 points or something like that in the first quarter. When he leaves, Charlotte had the lead. As I said, Jeremy himself did a tremendous amount to keep Charlotte close during the Miami burst in the first half and to help them get the lead in the second quarter by taking over the game essentially in the middle of that quarter. Okay? He came back in with 33 seconds left in the half. And it was because Charlotte had just gotten the ball on a turnover, and they knew Jeremy was doing well on offense, so they wanted to run a play for him. And it turned out to be an isolation jump shot from the right baseline, which Jeremy did not hit, but it was. I understand why Clifford did it, and actually I'm glad he put Jeremy back into the game for it. Halftime, Charlotte 49-44, so they had the lead, but it was still tenuous. Miami was right there. Nothing had been decided. Charlotte wasn't feeling. Charlotte had momentum. They felt good. They finally had a lead at halftime instead of being down by like 20 points. But the game was still on. It was still very much up for grabs. Okay, we came back out of halftime, same starting lineup for Charlotte. So even though Frank Kaminsky had struggled, Clifford stayed with him, and it was a good decision, and I'm glad he did it because it worked out great. And I'm sure Clifford thought about taking Kaminsky out of the starting lineup and not putting him in with the group at the start of the third quarter. One of the reasons why he couldn't do that, or why you don't want to do that, is you don't want that player to lose all confidence. You need Frank Kaminsky if you're going to win this series. So if you take him out of the starting lineup in the third quarter, you're basically showing you've lost confidence in him, and he could be done. I mean, he could be gone. I think JDV's calling me right now, but I'll call him back. So you need to mentally stay with him, and that's what Clifford did, and it certainly paid off great as the third quarter rolled along. Okay? Then Luol Deng hit another three-pointer, and this was on a play which Frank Kaminsky wasn't close to him enough again. So now Luol Deng had 15 points on 5 of 5 three-pointers, and it didn't look good. It just did not look good for Kaminsky and the Hornets early in the third, but they were going to hang in. Miami made a short run, 51-49 Charlotte. Now, so Miami was on a surge here. Charlotte then took a timeout with 9 minutes and 3 seconds left, and I put Kaminsky is getting crushed. Not only was he getting beaten down by Deng on the defensive end, Kaminsky himself was 0 of 3 from the field, and I think he had like no points. Maybe he had like 1 point or something on a layup or on a free throw, excuse me. Then Miami tied the score, 51-51. And then Frank Kaminsky finally decided to join the series, and it changed everything. He scored somewhere around the post. Miami scored. That made it 53-53. Kaminsky attacked Luol Deng off the dribble, like on a post-up, which is exactly what you need to do because you have a mismatch too. As I said before, you have a size mismatch, so use that when you're on offense. 2 free throws, made them both. I put like Marvin Williams, he's finally waking up. Then Kaminsky missed a three-pointer, but Charlotte scored anyway, 57-53, Charlotte at that point in time. Then Kaminsky had another post-up against Hassan Whiteside, and he almost scored it. But now Kaminsky was totally engaged. He had gone into basically Cam Sanity mode and just was like hyper-aggressive, and it was great. Okay, then Charlotte scored again. That made the score 59-53 for Charlotte. Miami timeout. This is when Jeremy came back into the game, and this was the beginning of the 22-4 run. And the run was now, I believe, 6-0. So when Jeremy came into the game, Kaminsky's sanity had begun. Charlotte was starting to get in a groove, and they were getting on this big super run, and Jeremy was going to be right in the middle of that. The lineup now was Kemba Walker, Jeremy Lin, Courtney Lee, actually Courtney was going to come back in. He went out, and Jeremy came in for Courtney, but Courtney was going to come back in like 30 seconds or something. Frank Kaminsky and Cody Zeller. That was the core 5 in the big run, although Marvin Williams and Al Jefferson were also part of the run, but just for a lesser amount of time. This was a group that was going to run, get the big run. Frank Kaminsky, after Jeremy comes in the game, Frank drove to the basket and was fouled, I think by Deng or Whiteside, made the free throw. That made the score 62-53 for Charlotte. Then Jeremy drew the third foul on Hassan Whiteside. I mentioned that earlier in the video. That was Whiteside went to set a screen, and he basically hit Jeremy too hard, so that was good. Then Kaminsky, I think Kaminsky Kaminsky scored again. Now we're moving on into late in the third quarter. Miami came down. They missed a shot. Charlotte ran up the other way. I think the ball was passed to Jeremy Lin. He hit a three-pointer in transition. He super fired up. Miami timeout with 3 minutes and 38 seconds left in the third quarter. Charlotte up 67-53. So what started as a 6-point lead was now a 14-point lead, and we're in the core of the 22-4 run here. That was going to take place throughout the third quarter, and Jeremy's fired up. The bench was going crazy when he hit the three-pointer. You definitely, if you have to see one highlight from this game, that's the highlight to see. Again, that took place with about 3 minutes and 45 seconds left or whatever when when it was setting up for that shot. Okay? Come out of the timeout, then Jeremy had a little spin fade shot in the lane, which he missed. He had earlier had I think they didn't give him an assist on a play, and then they went back and changed it. But now he had his third assist where he dribbled down into the lane, kind of, dribbled in, dribbled back out of the lane, passed the ball to Frank Kaminsky. Frank cut to the rim, shot a little floater over Whiteside. Boom, that scores. That's huge. Then soon after that, Whiteside got his fourth foul on a Cody Zeller offensive rebound. At this point in time, it seemed like Cody was getting all the offensive rebounds that were available, and Whiteside heat, everybody was frustrated. It was just crazy. We're now into a 16-0 run. That became an 18-0 run. Then I put Miami is collapsing. They're turning the ball over consistently now, and they're rattled. Then Jeremy had his 8th miss of the game. He looked like he definitely was fouled by Dragic on a little kind of hook scoop shot, but they didn't call it, so that's the way it is. Then I put Kaminsky beasting. He's killing Justice Winslow. I think they were actually trying to guard him with Justice Winslow. This is what I'm trying to say. They have 2 centers. Hassan Whiteside, or they're playing 2 centers. Hassan Whiteside and Amari Stoudemire. That means all the little guys have to play power forward, which means Luol Deng and Justice Winslow have to play power forward. Neither one of those guys is nearly big enough to guard Frank Kaminsky. Dang's probably, 6'6", 6'7". That's probably about what Winslow is. Kaminsky's 6'11", legit, or taller. Not big enough. Kaminsky just going down to the post, destroying it, just totally great. Then Jeremy almost had a steal, and we got to the end of the third quarter. 22-4 Charlotte run, 75-58 for Charlotte. 17-point lead, and now we're rolling. Now everything's gone. The crowd's into it. The bench is pumped up. Michael Jordan's there. He's clapping, and he's into it. He's wearing a little Charlotte Hornets T-shirt, sitting there with his wife right beside the bench. Everybody's feeling good. Frank Kaminsky in the third quarter itself had at least 13 points, because he ended the quarter with 15 points, and so I think he had at least 13, maybe all 15 in the third quarter. Incredible. Jeremy Lin finished the third quarter with 16 points, and I believe he was still the leading scorer in the game. Kemba also had 15 points as well. We go into the fourth quarter. The lineup to start the quarter: Jeremy Lin, Courtney Lee, Marvin Williams, Cody Zeller, Spencer Hawes. Come out, Marvin Williams hits a three-pointer, and it's just like, I'm like, yes. Again, Marvin is such an important part of this team. He's absolutely critical to what the team does and how the team feels. He's got to play well. And so to see him get a dunk, hit three-pointer, just kind of be himself, it was like, finally. Again, if he and Kaminsky play well, Charlotte can win this series. They absolutely can win this series. So he hits a three, 78-60. Then Cody Zeller was posting up against Justice Winslow. As I said, Justice is basically the backup power forward, and he's not big enough to guard Cody Zeller and Frank Kaminsky. Kaminsky is 6'11 plus. Zeller is 7 foot plus, or 7 foot flat. So there's just, it's too big. He's just not big enough, not experienced enough either. 80-60. Then Jeremy had a super, Jeremy's one defining characteristic of all of his characteristics in terms of an athlete or as a basketball player is his speed. He's so fast. And so what happened with Miami came down, they missed a layup. Jeremy got the rebound, or the ball was thrown to him. I can't remember which. He just zipped by everybody. I mean, he literally passed up like 4 or 5 guys from his and the other team and just went right down the middle and got a layup by everybody. Crowd went totally crazy. Timeout Miami, 84-60 for Charlotte. This game was for almost all the way over. It wasn't quite, but it was very, very close to being over. This was the biggest lead of the game. This continued the run from the end of the third quarter. And like I said, Miami was just about done. Not quite, but almost. Came out of that timeout. Then Jeremy had his 4th assist of the game. He was double-teamed on the right side of the court. Courtney Lee cut from the opposite baseline, from the left baseline. Jeremy saw him. Easy pass, easy layup, score. Just fantastic. Then Jeremy, now what started to happen, and this is where it got a little bit, what started to happen now was Miami was fading. and Charlotte was feeling great. And so they started kind of getting a little bit too loosey-goosey. They started taking a bunch of three-pointers, kind of relaxing on defense. It just got a little bit too loose there. So Miami made a comeback then. They cut the lead down to 17 points, 86-70. So in that period of time, from early in the fourth, from the Lin layup to like a Miami score with 6 minutes and 32 seconds left, 5 minutes and 56 seconds left, Miami cut the lead from 24 to 16. At this point in time, Coach Clifford took out the bench and he put in all the starters now, except Cody Zeller was in for Al Jefferson. And Cody deserved it because he was playing great. And it wasn't that Jeremy or anybody else was playing well. What I believe Coach was thinking then was, look, we're up, we've scored enough. Now let's go big and stop them on defense, because that's what the big lineup is for. It's for defense and rebounding. So we're up by 16. Now let's just clamp them down on defense. That's what they did. Miami only scored 10 points the rest of the rest of the game. That's what Charlotte scored. So Charlotte coast in to a 96-80 victory. That's your final. And, oh, man, was this huge. Huge for Jeremy and for the team. Again, Jeremy played 26 minutes. That was tied for fifth most on the team with Zeller. Al played like 21 minutes or something like that. So Jeremy's getting minutes. He could have gotten even more minutes. And the truth is, if that bench unit would have held the lead better, he would have probably played out the rest of the game. But it doesn't matter. He played great. He did what he needed to do. He was the leading scorer for the team. He played fantastic in this game, and he competed on defense. He had some nice defense against Dwayne Wade and against the rest of the Heat guys he was playing. This is the second best scoring performance for Jeremy Lin in his playoff career, which is about, I don't know, it's maybe like 13 games now. The only game that he scored more was 2014 playoffs against the Portland Trail Blazers, when Jeremy's with the Rockets, and he scored 21 points in game number 5. When you look at the statistics, Jeremy outplayed Dwayne Wade in this game. That gives you kind of an indication of how the night was. As I mentioned, Marvin Williams, Frank Kaminsky, enormous. And I put a tweet out about this, and we don't want to gloat, and we certainly don't want to gloat too early, but think of how far Jeremy Lin has come in his career. This is why I told people the entire season, and I'll definitely reaffirm it now. Remember, in 2013, Jeremy was the starter, and he was the starter for the entire year. And Houston had to play Oklahoma City in the first round of the playoffs, and they got crushed. And Jeremy got hurt in that series. And then Patrick Beverly came in, and he looked great, and everybody was like, oh, the playoffs are too fast for Jeremy. It's too intense and all stuff. And that was that. You know, Linsanity had closed up a lot of people, and then it was a fluke. But no, he started and he did okay, but no, the playoffs were too big. So there's always the next steps too much for Jeremy. Not anymore. Well, look, we already knew this from the 2014 playoffs. He was big in those playoffs, and he won the Rockets one of those games. Maybe it was Game 5. I don't remember. He had the pass to Troy Daniels for the game winner and all that. Jeremy was huge today. Sure, he didn't start, but he played like a starter in terms of minutes. And he's just come so far from where he was. I mean, he's developed, he's grown. Now you have a guy competing at the highest level against a very good team. I'm telling you, if this version of Miami played the entire season and they had maybe one more guy for depth, they would be right at the top of the East with Cleveland. This is a serious team. This is maybe, in terms of how they're playing and everything right now, this is probably a top 7 team in the NBA. the Heat right now. Just given how they finished the season and how they're playing in the first 2 games, you're talking about one of the top, maybe even better than top 7. Jeremy came out. He was aggressive. He was smart. He didn't turn the ball over. He was critical for this win, particularly critical in the first half when it was nip and tuck, back and forth. He did everything. I'm just so happy for him and so proud of him. And like I said, I've been saying, there's more to come. There was a recent New York Times article. I can't remember the author's name. I want to say the last name was K-E-H, Ke, Andrew Ke, something like that. And I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong. This was literally within the last 3 or 4 days. And one of the things that was quoted in the article was Steve Clifford saying about Jeremy Lin, the paraphrase is, I think he's got another jump in his game. And what Clifford means is Jeremy's still going to get better. He's not in final form yet. That's what I've been trying to tell people. What I think Clifford's talking about is his shooting, which of course we know is going to get better than what it was this year, the 3-point shooting. He's still working on that form. This isn't even the best version of him yet. And as I've said before, and it's not just shooting, he's going to get better totally. So I've said to people before, it takes point guards the longest to develop because they have to know the most. They are in charge of the most to understand, particularly on offense. Jeremy still is growing as a player. He's still growing. Look, I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again now. Steve Nash wasn't Steve Nash that we all think about until he was about 30 years old, 29, something like that. Jeremy's still developing. Let him develop. And today was a great step in that progression. One step, next step, next step, next step. He's just climbing up the ladder. And it's going to get better and better. As long as he's be able to stay healthy and everything, it's going to get better and better. And like I said, today was a big step forward for him. I know he was interviewed after the game. I don't know who he was interviewed by. There were 3 people that were taken for interviews after the game. One was Kemba Walker, one was Frank, the other was Jeremy. My guess is Kemba was interviewed on TNT. My guess is Jeremy was probably interviewed either by the local broadcasters, their TV, or else like the woman who does Aaron Gladwell, who does the videos for Hornets.com. And then Frank was probably interviewed, by the radio or something like that. But that's probably it. National, local, and radio. Those 3 were interviewed. But Jeremy was critical in this game. He was without doubt one of the best players on the court, if not the best player. And I'm just, like I said, I'm not only happy for him now, I'm happy for him in his career because this is the next evolutionary step for him in his career to be able to do this in the playoffs. And then hopefully he can do it consistently, and then you just keep going and building from there. Okay, that is it. Very, very, it's a long video, but we had a whole bunch to talk about. Very celebratory mood here. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Your comments below. Thanks to Gary Chen of the Jeremy Only Lin Garden fan group for the artwork you're looking at now. Gary is an artist and blogger in Taiwan. Obviously, he's a very talented artist, as you can see. You can learn more about Gary and the Jeremy Only Lin Garden fan group, which is headquartered in Taiwan, if you follow the information for them in the video description below the video player. Also, I will put information for highlights for this game in the video description. Hopefully, it takes them longer to get the highlights up during the playoffs, so I'll get it there, the full highlights, as quickly as I can. Finally, in the video description, you will find information about how you can join the Conservative New Media Facebook group and how you can come follow us on Twitter. I tend to tweet out during the games, and if there's any important information between games as well, we tweet it out during Game 3 today. Once again, I'm PFE Paul F. Villarreal, the happy NBA expert. Thanks a lot for watching Conservative New Media. We strive to be the #1 Jeremy Lin YouTube fan channel. Just terrific stuff today. I couldn't be happier or prouder of the team or of Jeremy. Everybody did exactly what they needed to do. Oh, I didn't even mention Charlotte only had 3 turnovers in this entire game, which ties an NBA playoff record. That is phenomenal. Or maybe, no, it was 3. I thought it might have been 4 at the end, but it was actually 3. As I mentioned, that ties an NBA record. They can do it. They can win this series. This is not a fluke. It is going to be difficult because of what I mentioned, because Miami is so disciplined and they have mismatch potentials in every game based upon who Charlotte is playing. But Charlotte also has mismatch potentials, and they are particularly going to have mismatches at the power forward position. So look for Cody Zeller, Frank Kaminsky to be used a whole bunch on offense to punish Miami in those matchups. That's what they should do. We saw it today, and that's going to be a formula, I would imagine, going forward. Hope you're having a great night or great day wherever you are around the world when you watch this video. Take care. We will talk to you again soon. And when I say soon, the next game coming up, I almost forgot to mention that. Again, there's a little bit more time off during the playoffs, which is great because that's going to help the team. They need to rest. John's calling me again, and I'll call him back soon. Excuse me, it's not extra rest. I thought they had an extra day of rest, but they don't. And what we see instead is that the next game will take place 2 days from now here in the United States, Monday, April 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and it will be shown on NBA TV. That means the game will take place on Tuesday, April 26th at 7 a.m. in the morning in Taipei, Taiwan, and throughout China. So we will see you here less than 48 hours or 48 hours or so, I guess, depending, something like that. Can't wait. I'm really excited, and I'm really hopeful about what the Hornets can do in game number 4. I'm not worried about who's starting, whatever. If it worked today and Frank's playing well, do it. That's fine. I have no problem with that. So let's just win. And look, Jeremy's going to get his minutes. He certainly earned them today. So whatever. I mean, if Frank plays well at the start of game number 4 and he starts, I'm fine. I just want to win. And I'm sure Clifford's going to use Jeremy a lot, and he should. So that is it. Take care. Talk to you again Monday night.